Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check it out. And guys, today we're going to be talking about cold water swim bait fishing, specifically Finesse swim baits like the Megabass Spark Shad here. Going to give you guys some tips and advice on rigging, the different type of rigging setups for it, where you want to fish it at, how you want to fish it, because little swim baits, when that water temperature is in the 40s and 50s, any time between like December and late March, one of the most effective ways to catch a lot of fish. So we're going to get into that in today's episode here. And also guys, everything that I'll be talking about, I'll put in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description. We're going to be talking about the swim baits I like, the swim bait heads that I like the Core Tackle Hover Rig head, the Megabass Okashira jig head. I'm going to link every one of those in my Tackle Warehouse link. If you guys would like to get a few of them after the video, you can use that link, so appreciate that. Okay, wintertime fishing, yeah, but we've been doing a lot of videos on it on all three of my channels lately because it's about a 3-month window of the time of the year. We're right in the middle of it right now. And I fish a lot in the wintertime. I probably fish a lot more than what most people do, so I've got a pretty good pulse on the things that work under different situations. And there's a lot of different techniques that work in the wintertime that I utilize based upon the specific set of circumstances in the wintertime, because the wintertime period, it's not just like when you talk about winter bass fishing, people think about it's just freezing cold and the water's freezing cold. There are different stages to the wintertime period of the year. You have the early wintertime, which is sort of like a transition from late fall. Then you have the dead of the winter, like we're sort of in right now. Then you've got sort of the late winter, early spring. And each one of those periods is dictated by different techniques. Now, the dictation of this depends on things like water temperature, water clarity, the increasing daylight hours that we have throughout the year. All of that impacts the technique. So in terms of the little Finesse swim baits I'm talking about, this is a really good technique for the dead of the winter or late winter that we're getting into right now. So that's why I really like to fish it under these situations. So first of all, I'm gonna show you guys the 3 setups that I like to use for my Finesse wintertime setups, and then we're gonna get into a little bit about how to fish them and where you wanna fish them at. Okay, the first one that I use, this is the Megabass 3-inch Spark Shad, and I couple it up with an 1/8 of an ounce Megabass Okashira jig head. It's got a great little nano coated hook in it here, really good keeper, fish head design, needle point. This is just one of the finest jig heads on the market. And I've got the Megabass, like I said, the 3-inch Spark Shad here. And just rig it, it's pretty straightforward. Just rig it right through the middle. When you're rigging it, guys, try to keep the hook close to the top of the bait, because that gives you a little bit more of a bite gap when it comes out. But simple rigging technique, just like that. And sometimes like on this one, I'll take the eyes off so I don't have 4 eyes. But this is one of my favorite setups right here for when those fish are a little bit deeper in the wintertime. Now, the time that I fish the 3-inch Spark Shad with the 1/8 ounce Okashira jig head is when I'm in a clear water situation, like the water visibility is over 3 feet or so, and I feel that those bass are on the bottom deeper. So, for example, here in the Ozarks, in the Ozark White River lakes I fish, a lot of these fish will be down 30 to 50 foot deep this time of year. So what I do in there is, like, I'll get out like on some main lake or secondary points, cast the Okashira setup here, let it go to the bottom in 25 or 30 foot of water, and I just slowly crawl it along the bottom. I'm trying to keep it right on the bottom or just barely off the bottom. I don't want it to come up very much at all. So that's my technique with that. Now, the next one that I use, a little bit different, is if I feel that those fish are on the bottom, but they're a little bit more finicky. This is a situation where I'm going to the Core Tackle Hover Rig head here. This thing is freaking unbelievable, guys. And I've got a little bit different setup here. I've got a more finesse. This is the Megabass 3-inch Hazedong Shad, which is a very, very finesse very, very finesse swim bait. So let me explain the situation when I use this setup. First of all, let me show you how to rig the hover rig. It's a little bit different. You want to come in probably about a 1/2 inch or so from the head there, and then you thread it on. This is what makes the hover rig unique. Thread it on like that, and you're going to have to pull the head down to the hook eye into it like that, and then see the little tip here? You got to put it back into the head. So just come forward with a little bit and just insert it back in the head of the swim bait like that. So this is the cool thing about the hover rig head, is all of your head is invisible inside the bait, and you got the lead of the shank of the hover rig hook comes back. So what this does is it makes the Hazedong shad spiral on the way down. This is the thing that makes the hover rig so effective, is the spiraling action. It's almost like it's dying. So in a very tough fishing situation, let's say, for example, you've got really clear water, the water visibility is over 4 feet, and you got one of those bright bluebird days, not much wind, tough fishing conditions. This is when I use the hover rig and this little Hazedong shad. And what I do it the same way is I'll throw it out there, I'll let it hit the bottom, and it's spiraling all the way down, but I'm not really expecting to catch fish on the way down. I want it to get to the bottom. And then when it gets to the bottom, I'm gonna snap it up off the bottom, about a foot or so off the bottom, and then it's gonna spiral back down to the bottom like this. Now this, and jerking it off the bottom like this and letting that bait slowly spiral down, I catch a lot of fish in the wintertime in the really, really tough fishing conditions, with this particular setup. Now, another time that I use this is if I know the fish are schooled up and suspended where I can get them underneath the boat vertical. So let me give you a prime scenario with that, where I'll use the hover rig with the Hazedong shad. Let's say, for example, I'm back on that same point that I'm talking about, because I love fishing points in the wintertime. If I can graph out like a school of shad off the end of the point, and say, for example, I see this big ball of shad in about 30 foot of water, over 40 or 50 foot of water, I'll take the hover rig and I'll drop it vertical into that school of shad, let it fall down like that into it. And just once it gets down in that school of shad, I'll just sort of shake it around and pop it a little bit. And it looks just like a dying shad from the, cold water shad kill in there. Catch a lot of fish doing that. Okay, and then finally, the third setup that I use, a little bit different, and there's, like I said, there's 3 different swim baits that I use, is just the 2.4 inch Keitech here. Now the Keitech I use it also with the Okashira head and with the Keitech. The Keitech is a really good bait when those fish are suspended in the water column. And this would be for the same situation that you're catching them on a jerk bait. So that's the setup with that. Now the reason I use the Keitech over the Megabass Spark Shad is just the profile and the bait of it. The profile and the design's a little bit different. So this is what I do with the Keitech. Let's say, for example, we're back on our point again, main lake secondary point, and I'm catching a few fish on a jerk bait or an A-rig, say over 10 to 15 or 20 foot of water. And I know these fish are suspended because I'm catching them on the jerk bait. Once I catch a few fish and then the fish starts dying down, this is my mop-up bait. I'll take the little 2.4 inch Keitech and I'll throw it out there in the zone that I feel that I was getting bit on the jerk bait, and I just reel it straight through the water column like that. Just horizontal through the water column. All of these baits, guys, I'm fishing on a 6-pound test Seagarn Vizex fluorocarbon, straight fluorocarbon, 6 foot 11 inch Megabass rod. And that's the setup with it that I use. Now, one thing that I always do, and this will help you out, is when you're wintertime swim bait fishing, always put a little bit of a puff of chartreuse on the tail. Now, you don't want to put the whole tail chartreuse. Just put a little bit on there, on both sides of it, like that. Just a little touch of it on there. Now, even if the water's clear, that little bit of puff of chartreuse just on the tail makes a big difference as far as getting bites or not. And one other tip I'll give you, if it is cloudy the day that you're fishing, take the same chartreuse marking pen and you want to go down the side of the bait right where there's a coloration difference. So I'll just put draw a line of chartreuse right down the side of that. Just gives a little bit of color. And in those low light conditions like that, see that? The low light conditions, just that little bit of chartreuse coming through the water like that versus, just the plain shad on the other side, it'll definitely sometimes get you some more strikes with that. But anyway, guys, that's just sort of my system for my wintertime little swim bait deal. The best way, if you guys haven't caught many fish doing this, the best way to do it is, like I said, if you're catching a few fish on your Alabama rig or, jerk baits or something like that, or spy baits, just try one of these little things behind it. They're really good mop-up bait. They're really good if you have a lake that has spotted bass or smallmouth in it. Very good in tough fishing conditions. Get a lot of bites, and you can occasionally catch some good ones on it. So Anyway, guys, hope it helps you out. We'll talk later.